Hello internet friends, my name is Catherine and I'm the human behind Creation Biscuiture. And today we're doing a new series and this series is basically Color Wheel Monday because I just want to explore more about the color wheel and color theory as a whole. So I just figured why not just grab my color wheel and experiment from there. So in this series will take place a very long period of time, and we're going to just go work our way through it every Monday. We're going to be choosing one color and we're going to be using all the complementary color, I guess. So for example, this Monday we're doing a red and adding a yellow in different increment, so that way we can we can see how the yellow will impact the red and all of that. So let's get into this. Okay, everyone, we're going to be working the color wheels in this new series. So sorry, it looks a little crusty because I use it quite a bit. So I just want to explore a lot about color theory and how it applies onto hand-dyed yarn, because the more you know about color theory and color wheel and all that, the more you can create colors that are what you have in your mind. So today we're going to start with the red, and I'm going to show you which colors we're going to be using for the entire series. So we're going to be working with Fire Engine Red. I don't know how to pronounce that word, sorry. Brilliant Yellow. We're also going to be working with Blazing Orange, Electric Violet, Caribbean Blue, and Kelly Green, because I feel like those are the closest to the color wheel I currently have in my possession. So the way we're going to be working this is we're going to have this for our starters, because I want to work the red first, and today we're going to be adding yellow. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do a 1% stock solution in 1% depth of shade for all of them, and then we're going to be adding our yellow by increment. So yeah, so the red will be our base. Like, I did my math and it's going to be quite interesting to say the least, for how many milliliters we need to add. So we're going to be starting at the lowest, so we are going to need 0.5 milliliter of the yellow for the small one. And you might say that, Catherine, you're going crazy. This is way too little of a quantity. But yeah, I know, I'm crazy. But I need to understand how it will affect the final result. Okay, like this. And how it will change. So I need 2.5. Oh, shoot. I made a mistake. It's okay. Okay, and then we need 5 milliliter here. Mm-mm-mm. 5. And I know that yellow is like, it's one of those colors that get lost a lot when you have other colors. So it does have it's not as potent as others. So I'm not expecting like a blazing orange level of color when we add our skeins in there, that's for sure. So now we're going to be adding the skeins. I'm using 10-gram mini skeins, so it will be the fingering stroll from Knitpick, and we'll have an affiliated link in the description box below if you're interested in purchasing the 10-gram minis. They're really practical when you're trying to do tests in color. And I forgot to mention, but I already have a 1% depth of shade dyed in each of our main colors, so that way we'll be able to make a comparison of the colors when everything has been dyed. Okay, well, the yellows seem to be doing something for sure. I'm just not sure how much of a difference it makes for the smaller quantities. But it's okay. That's why we're experimenting with the colors. Stop, stop. We might end up with very cute colors. Or not. I guess it really depends. I don't usually work a whole lot with the primary colors like this, so it's going to be very interesting. And it's a good thing to do this exercise just to know that you can work a lot with very few colors too. You don't need a whole arsenal of different shades of blues and all that to create beautiful colors. And last but not least, our 10. Okay, so maybe we will have a blazing orange situation. We'll have to compare it to with the blazing orange. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to. Where is my spoon? I always lose my spoon somewhere. Oh, good thing I have my brain and my. Good thing I have my head attached to my body. Unfortunately. Okay. So I can tell that it will have lightened up the first one, that's for sure. And we're going to be more on the warm side of the color wheel, that's for sure. Just due to the fact that the yellow in general are more warm than other colors. I think this is going to be a fun activity. Okay, so now that everything has been mixed up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be adding them into my half size catering pan, and we're going to be doing a double border situation like we usually do for when I'm using my mason jars. So I'm going to be adding my mason jar here. I don't have any acid quite yet, and they were in 300 milliliter of tap water, and they were room temperature. And since it's no longer winter, which I'm very happy with, we have really, it's not as cold. The water isn't as cold, so that's for sure. So I'm going to be adding the water, and I want to have a whole lots of water in here because I want all the water to be at a good temperature. It's the same thing if you were going to like do canning. You want to have as much liquid as much as possible, at least, to be at the same height as the liquid in your mason jar. But I think you're supposed to, aren't you supposed to cover the? There we go. And I'm going to let this cook a tiny bit before adding the acid so we can have an even coverage of the yarn in the mason jar. So, and I'm going to be cleaning up a little bit because I did a mess, as per usual. Okay, see you in a bit. So I wanted to show you the mason jar, and there is some tint of red in some of them, which is not too bad. It is red. Red has a tendency to not fully stray the yarn, and we usually have some leftover in the dye bath. So it's not something that we should be too worried about, but we should definitely make sure that we don't have any excess dye that will like stain your water. So whenever you're dyeing or using reds in any capacity, so if it's for a project or anything, you can always use a color catcher to ensure that if you're using your red with something else, it won't stain the other colors. Because if you're working white, your white might become slightly pink if you don't use a color catcher and you're using red. So this is something that you need to keep in mind. It's not necessarily because you didn't dye properly, it's just that some red dyes do have a tendency to just leak a little bit. So keep that in mind. Make sure that you use color catcher in your bigger project. You make sure that you're using proper soap and that you're not using hot water and just cool water when doing this. Okay, so here's the final result of the experimentation we did with our Fire Engine Red and the Brilliant Yellow. So I just want to show you my control colors first. So you can see that there is, oh no, it's not orange. I grabbed the, my bad. I grabbed the orange because I wanted to compare it to our darkest shade. And you can see that the main difference with my orange created using Brilliant Yellow and Fire Engine Red and the Brilliant Orange, oh no, it's not Brilliant Orange, it's Blazing Orange, is the warmth in our yellow and red mix. So basically, if you have more red, you will have a warmer orange when you're mixing it. That's basically what I understand from this experimentation. And you can see that the difference between the control and the one with the 0.5 depth of shade of yellow is very subtle. It is very close to the original, which I was expecting because yellow is not the most potent, I would say. It's not the color that will overpower anything, that's for sure, compared to other colors. So the red still has a big impact in the final color. It's very warm. This one is closer to a saffron color, so this is interesting to experiment. And obviously, if we had picked different shades of red and yellow to create our orange, we would have had a final result very different in terms of shade, not in terms of potency or overpowering and stuff like that, but definitely in terms of shade it would have been different, but similar in the depth of shade, I would say. So that's pretty much what we have here. This is a fun experimentation and I'm going to make a whole series out of it. I'll be working my way through the entire color wheel this year. So stay tuned for the next one. So if you've liked the video, please consider sharing, liking, and subscribing to the channel. And I will see you in the next one very soon. Bye!